Welcome to the Eerie Hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. Tonight, we step into the shadowed corners of an old house where forgotten pipes carry more than just water. We explore the descent of an obsession, a study in sound and silence, and the unsettling truth that listens from the dark. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. You find the box high in the attic, tucked so far under the sloping eaves, the dust is thick and undisturbed. It's heavy with the weight of disuse and secrets. A scent rises from it immediately, a damp, earthy smell of mildewed paper layered with something sharper, something metallic like old pennies or drying blood. Inside, nestled amongst decaying newspaper clippings from decades past, is a reel-to-reel recorder, its silver reels dull with time. Several tapes sit beside it, labeled only with faded dates and strange, almost runic symbols scratched into the plastic. Underneath, there is a journal, its cover warped and water-stained, the pages swollen and brittle. It isn't a diary in the conventional sense. Instead, it's a meticulous, almost clinical log of auditory phenomena. Page after page details specific sounds, locations within a building, identified only by coordinates and vague room descriptions, and timestamps. The focus is singular, obsessive, sounds emanating from the plumbing. The handwriting starts neat, precise, documenting faint gurgles, structural groans, the percussive tap of settling pipes. The first entry speaks of a faint, persistent vibration, like distant voices, easily mistaken for the building's old bones shifting or wind finding its way through cracks. The air in the attic, thin and still, seems to grow colder the longer you hold the journal. It is a stagnant chill, unlike the natural cold of disuse. On the later pages, the entries become frantic, the handwriting sprawling and jagged. The measured observations give way to scribbled impressions, fearful questions. The final entry is a wild, nearly illegible scribble. They're louder. They want in. This is where it begins for you. An old mystery, left incomplete, now sits in your hands, whispering of a forgotten obsession that bloomed in these same musty spaces. You relocate, drawn inevitably to the building the journal describes, an aging structure with too many pipes and forgotten access panels. It smells of damp stone and old dust, a scent disturbingly familiar to the box. You set up, the recorder from the box now humming softly, positioned near a drain in a disused basement room, a location marked with agitated notes in the journal. You listen. For hours, there is only the expected sound of old plumbing, the rush of water from floors above, the groan of the system settling. But then, under the mundane gurgle, you hear it, faint, almost imperceptible, a low hum, perhaps, or a vibration. It is easily dismissed as old pipes, resonance, nothing more. Yet, it echoes the journal's first entry, and a thread of curiosity, initially skeptical, begins to tighten into something like obsession. You find yourself listening intently, straining to hear beyond the normal sounds, trying to replicate the recordings. The sound of dripping water from a loose faucet nearby becomes unnaturally prominent in the silence between the plumbing's groans, a relentless, rhythmic punctuation. You notice, near the drain, a strange, dark stain on the concrete floor, irregular and deep. Just as the journal mentioned, in its increasingly erratic final entries. It wasn't just water, you think, even then. The air in the basement is thicker than in the attic, heavy with the scent of mildew and something else, a faint, metallic tang that makes the hairs on your arms prickle. You have been listening for 3 days now, the recorder running almost constantly. Sleep comes in fractured bursts, filled with dreams of flooded rooms and muffled voices. The initial skeptical curiosity has curdled into something more potent, a gnawing need to understand, to hear what the journal's author heard. You play sections of the tapes found in the box. The early tapes, like the journal's first entries, are filled with background noise, environmental sounds. But on tapes dated closer to the final entries, the background hum becomes more defined, and beneath it, a low, resonant vibration that seems almost intentional. You try to isolate it, re-record, compare your own recordings to the aging tapes. The subtle sound you heard on the first night near the drain is clearer now, no longer easily dismissed as just the house settling. It's a low thrumming, steady and persistent, like something large and powerful resting just out of sight, its presence felt through the very structure of the building. The psychological fracture deepens. You find yourself talking to the journal, to the previous owner, arguing with their increasingly wild claims, even as you replicate their findings. The dripping water from the loose faucet has stopped, strangely, leaving a void in the ambient noise. But the thrumming from the drain persists, filling the silence. The dark stain on the concrete floor near the drain seems larger in the dim light, spreading like spilled ink. The journal described it as a mark, not a stain. And the word feels heavy now. Hours bleed into days in the humid, echoing space. The thrumming from the drain is a constant companion, a pulse beneath the silence. You trace pipes, consulting the journal's cryptic diagrams, trying to find the source. The walls themselves seem to vibrate faintly when you press your ear to them near certain lines. Sleep is a luxury you no longer afford easily. The lack of it warps the edges of reality. You start hearing things when the recorder is off, when there is no water running. Faint echoes, a sound like pebbles shifting deep within the pipes, or sometimes a low sigh. This is the central uncanny event of these long hours. The sounds are no longer confined to the moments when water is flowing. They are persistent, present in the quiet. You spend a full night sitting by the drain, the scent of damp earth and metal thick in the air, listening to the sighs and shifting sounds beneath the thrum. The obsession consumes you entirely now. The need to understand replaces all other needs: food, rest, contact with the outside world. You measure the stain again. It has grown, undeniably. The journal's increasingly desperate scrawls about the stain taking nourishment now hold a chilling weight. You wonder if the silence that follows the cessation of the dripping faucet was not just a coincidence, but deliberate, an offering perhaps, or a clearing of the air before a whispered word could be heard more clearly. Perhaps the silence is not empty at all. The whispers begin subtly, woven into the thrumming and sighs. They are not words, not at first. More like the sound of wind chimes far away, or dry leaves skittering across pavement, but heard not by your ears, but inside your head. This is the new escalation. You put on headphones connected to the recorder, trying to isolate the sound, but it seems loudest when you are furthest from the equipment, when you are simply sitting in the quiet, listening to the building breathe. The basement air feels colder again, despite the rising humidity. The scent of mildew and metal is now accompanied by a faint, cloying sweetness, like decaying flowers. Your psychological state fractures further. You start writing in the margins of the journal, arguing with the previous owner's fears, trying to rationalize the increasingly irrational. Delusion settles in like the damp air. You find yourself leaving small offerings near the stain. A coin, a smooth stone, mirroring a passage in the journal that described appeasements. The dark stain is visibly larger this morning, its edges sharper, almost defined. The dripping water motif, though the faucet is silent, returns in your dreams, an incessant, maddening tap, tap, tap against unseen porcelain. The thrumming from the drain seems to have a new quality now, a low, resonant hum that makes your teeth ache. It feels less like a vibration of something, and more like a sound from somewhere else entirely, reaching through the solid material of the world. It makes you question what solid even means. The whispers coalesce. They are still not words you understand, but they have shape, a texture, a rhythm that feels ancient and alien. They are loudest when you are on the verge of sleep, or when you stare too long at the dark stain on the floor. The air is heavy with the cloying sweet scent now, almost overpowering the mildew and metal. You spend hours running the old reel-to-reel tapes, hoping to hear the whispers replicated, but they are only in the silence, only when you listen without the aid of technology. This is the uncanny peak, the sounds that defy recording, that exist only in the space between you and the drain, or perhaps inside you. Your psychological state is precarious. Fear is a constant tremor beneath your skin, overlaid with a strange, dark fascination. You speak to the whispers now, sometimes aloud, sometimes only in your head. You feel a growing conviction that they are speaking to you, not just around you. The stain is vast now, covering a significant patch of the floor near the drain, a dark, slick mirror reflecting nothing but the dim ceiling light. The rhythm of the absent dripping water echoes in your own heartbeat, a frantic, irregular pulse that mirrors the chaos in your mind. The thrumming from the drain feels like a direct pressure against your skull, not just a sound. You start to believe the journal's final words were not just fear, but a recognition, an anticipation. They want in, the journal said, and you realize with a chilling certainty that they might already be here, or that perhaps the door is not meant to open outward. The sounds recede slowly, not all at once, but like a tide pulling back from a shore. The thrumming from the drain softens, fades, becomes just the dull resonance of old pipes again. The whispers, you strain to hear them in the silence, but they are gone. The cloying sweet scent dissipates, leaving only the familiar smell of damp stone and dust. The intense, focused pressure behind your eyes lessens. The recorder sits silently, the reel-to-reel machine still, obsolete once more. The psychological residue lingers like a phantom limb. The obsession is broken, replaced by a profound exhaustion and a chilling emptiness. What did you hear? What did you lose? The unanswered questions are a heavy cloak you carry. The dark stain on the concrete floor is still there, vast and deep. A map of a journey taken not over ground, but through something else. It no longer looks like spilled ink, but something older, organic, like a vast, dry fungus or a patch of dead coral. The phantom rhythm of dripping water still sometimes echoes in the quiet moments. A memory of a sound that became a motif, a symbol of time passing, or perhaps something waiting to break through. The journal lies open, its final frantic entry, a testament to a terror that perhaps consumed its author entirely. You are left with the silence, the stain, and the knowledge that you listened too long, too deeply. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. The cold, dry air of the basement seems to settle deeper now, carrying more than just the scent of damp stone. It holds the sounds. What began as faint, indeterminate gurgles beneath the floorboards draws you back, day after day, hour after hour. You press an ear against the cold metal pipes that spiderweb down the wall, holding a cheap digital recorder close. Your initial curiosity has deepened into a consuming fixation. Time collapses around the edges of this listening. Meals are missed. Sleep becomes a luxury you can no longer afford. The sounds themselves are changing. No longer are they merely the random churn and sigh of water finding its way through antiquated plumbing. There is structure now, a deliberate quality that makes the skin prickle. They rise and fall with a subtle rhythm, a patterned inflection, like muffled voices speaking behind a closed, thick door. It is like listening to a conversation, indistinct yet undeniably present, just beyond comprehension. And then, the chilling shift. When you lean closer, when you hold your breath to hear better, the sounds seem to react. A quiet whisper rises slightly in volume. A rhythmic pulse momentarily falters before resuming with unnerving precision. It feels like they are responding to your presence, acknowledging you in the dark. You spend long stretches analyzing the recordings, tracing the recurring pulses, the rising inflections. A pattern emerges, repeating sequences that feel disturbingly deliberate, like a code you lack the key to. This rhythmic pulse is the new heartbeat of the house, a low thrumming beneath your own pulse. The house itself seems to grow more sensitive around you. Every creak of the old structure, every shift in weight upstairs makes you startle, anticipating a response from below. An unpleasant smell sometimes accompanies the clearest sounds, a stagnant, earthy odor like neglected drains or something worse, something decaying just out of sight. Sleep deprivation and this intense focused listening begin to fray the edges of your mind. Paranoia coils tight in your gut. You feel watched, not just by unseen entities, but by the very walls around you. The suspicion solidifies into a chilling certainty. The sounds aren't just coming through the pipes from somewhere else. They are originating from within the walls themselves, whispering from the plaster and the wood. Your hands tremble as you trace the course of a pipe near the floor drain, the metal frigid under your touch. There, partially lodged near the rusted grating, is something small. It is dark, oddly shaped, not like fallen debris. You carefully nudge it with a finger. It is smooth, dense, and feels unsettlingly organic under your touch, carved with faint lines that resemble nothing you can place. It shouldn't be there. How long has it been waiting, listening, beside the drain? Your world shrinks to the low hum of the equipment and the damp chill that clings to everything. The grand old house fades. Only its network of pipes and drains remains. You trace the lines beneath floors, behind walls, guided by the original researcher's frantic scribbled notes. Each drain becomes a mouth you lean into, microphone extended, ears straining. The sounds are no longer subtle, no longer a question of imagination. They are undeniable now, a low, guttural chorus that pulses and overlaps, emanating from every water outlet simultaneously. The kitchen sink, the upstairs tub, the basement floor drain, even the old garden spigot outside. It is a harmony of dread sung in a language you cannot comprehend, but feel deep in your bones. Near these points of egress, where water settles or flows slowly, the supernatural intensifies. Reflections on the surface are wrong, not just distorted by ripples, but fundamentally altered. Your face isn't quite your own. There are blurs, shifts, hints of forms that shouldn't be there, especially when the drain chorus swells. The water itself, even from a clear source like the main tap, appears unnaturally dark, cloudy, sometimes thick with an unseen sediment, like stagnant pond scum dredged from a forgotten place. You spend hours staring into porcelain basins filled with this unsettling fluid, captivated by the wrongness staring back. The persistent dampness permeates your clothes, your hair, the very air you breathe, heavy and cold. Your own breath echoes strangely in the stillness between the waves of sound, the only familiar noise in this aquatic symphony of the uncanny. The hours blur into indistinguishable stretches. You find your recording equipment charging by a sink you don't remember visiting recently. Did you leave the light on in the hall, or did you just come from there? The confusion is a fog that rolls in and out, leaving you momentarily adrift. Time has become a fluid concept, warped and unreliable. You might spend what feels like minutes hunched over a single drain, then look at your watch and find hours have passed. Days seem compressed, the sequence of events a jumbled mess. It's as if the house, or the drains, are subtly rearranging your perception, untethering you from reality's simple anchors. The symbolic thread tightens around mirrors and reflections. Any reflective surface feels charged with potential dread. Catching your own reflection in a window pane at night, you see not just yourself, but a fleeting distortion, a flicker of movement at the periphery of your vision, always linked to the memory or the immediate sound of the drains. The bathroom mirror is the worst. You avoid it now, knowing the water in the sink below hums with that low sound, knowing what you might see looking back or looking from behind you. The mirror hasn't moved, but something behind it has. Sifting through the old researcher's notes, you find recurring marginalia, cryptic phrases, diagrams that make no sense at first. Then, near a drawing of the house's original plumbing schematic, a note stands out, underlined multiple times, almost obscured by water stains. The blocked vein, beneath the oldest foundation, where the flow stops but the sound starts. It points vaguely towards a sealed-off section, perhaps a forgotten cistern or a disconnected pipe, hidden deep within the house's structure. A central supernatural event, triggered not by a physical entity, but by the discovery of this place where the sounds originate, a place deliberately sealed away. It feels less like a discovery and more like an unveiling, like the house waited for you to find this secret passage, this heart of its unsettling plumbing. The ambiguity hangs heavy. Is this sealed place merely the source of a strange acoustic anomaly? Or is it a door to something that should never have been contained? It hints at a deliberate act, a reason for the blockage, a secret buried beneath the house's floorboards, waiting. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. Places where the air feels thicker than it should, where the shadows seem to hold their breath, and the quiet isn't empty, but listening. Tonight, we step into one such place. An old house, yes, but more than that. A crossroads where reality frays, and the veil between what is and what isn't grows thin. It begins with a sound, as many such tales do. The sound that calls to you, insists on your attention, pulling you down into the forgotten spaces beneath the floorboards and behind the walls. It's a descent into something ancient and patient, something that has been waiting a very long time. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. Hey, you stand in the hallway, dust motes dancing in the single shaft of light slicing through a high, grimy window. The air is cool, carrying the scent of old wood, damp plaster, and something else, faint, metallic, like rusty water. It's the silence that holds your attention first, deep and cavernous, the kind that presses in on your eardrums. But then, beneath the silence, you hear it, a soft sound, elusive, like water running far away, or perhaps something murmuring. It seems to come from the back of the house, from the kitchen, or maybe even further, down towards the cellar. A faint drip echoes from somewhere out of sight, a lonely pulse in the stillness. Curiosity, or something colder, tugs at you. You move deeper into the house, drawn by the sound, the silence expanding behind you like a closing door. There's a mirror in the living room, draped haphazardly with a yellowed sheet. As you pass, a corner of the sheet slips, revealing a sliver of darkened glass that seems to absorb the meager light. The house feels larger than it appeared from the outside, its corridors stretching slightly, the angles not quite right. You listen again. The sound is clearer now, definitely coming from the back, and it isn't just water. There's a cadence to it, a faint, rhythmic pattern beneath the liquid noise. It feels less like plumbing and more like breathing. Or maybe it's just the house settling, the old pipes groaning in the cold. But the drip, drip, drip continues, steady and relentless, a counterpoint to the soft, persistent hum emanating from the depths of the old structure. It's just an old house, you tell yourself, full of old sounds, but the sound seems to know you're listening now. Section 2. The soft sound draws you to the kitchen, where the air is colder, heavier. It seems to originate from the sink, or perhaps the drain beneath it. You lean closer, peering into the porcelain basin. It's empty, stained, but smells faintly of mildew and something sharp, almost like vinegar. The soft murmuring is louder here, no longer easily mistaken for mere water. It feels structured, like words just beneath the threshold of comprehension, wrapped in the sound of rushing liquid. You turn the faucet on slightly, letting water trickle into the sink. The murmuring doesn't change, doesn't blend with the fresh water. It persists beneath it, distinct and alien. A small mirror hangs crookedly on the wall above the sink, its glass cloudy with age and steam from countless forgotten meals. As you look into its dull surface, you catch a fleeting movement in the periphery of your vision, a shadow detaching itself from the wall near the floor, gone before you can properly register it. Your breath catches in your throat. It was just the light shifting, you rationalize, or maybe a mouse. But the feeling of being watched is sudden and intense. The rhythmic murmuring from the drain seems to deepen, gaining a low resonance that vibrates slightly in the floorboards. It's not just water, you realize with a jolt of fear. It's something in the water sound, something using it like a curtain. The house presses closer, the walls feeling less like solid structure and more like waiting skin. What words are hidden in that sound? What names might it be repeating? Section 3. The whispers, now undeniably words, pull you closer still, down the narrow steps leading to the cellar. The air here is thick, with the smell of damp earth and rot, colder than the rest of the house. The steps creak under your weight, each one a loud protest in the otherwise occupied silence. The murmuring grows into a chorus here, coming from the floor drain in the center of the concrete floor, and from the intricate network of pipes running along the ceiling and walls. It's a multitude of voices, layered and indistinct, like a radio tuned between stations, all static and fragments, yet undeniably conveying meaning just out of reach. A small, dusty mirror leans against one rough stone wall, reflecting only darkness. You approach the floor drain, a rusted metal grate set into the concrete. The sound is loudest here, a furious, swirling rush of whispers that feel less like speaking and more like yearning. The temperature drops sharply around the drain, a pocket of unnatural cold that doesn't seem to dissipate. You notice condensation forming rapidly on a section of pipe overhead, dripping onto the concrete floor near the drain. Not the slow drip from before, but faster, more deliberate. You feel a growing sense of dread, a cold knot tightening in your stomach. The words seem to brush against your mind, not just your ears, hinting at secrets, at age, at a presence that predates the house itself. You want to leave, to climb back up the stairs, but the sounds hold you, anchor you in the chilling air. Are they trying to tell you something? Or are they simply hungry? Section 4. The line between hearing and seeing blurs. The whispers are constant now, a buzzing in your ears even when you back away from the drains, a persistent thrumming beneath everything. You rub your temples, trying to clear your head, but the sound is internal now as much as external. The air grows thick, heavy with an oppressive dread that coats your tongue and makes your skin crawl. Glimpses of movement flicker in your peripheral vision, a shadow darting behind a stack of boxes, a form coalescing near a dripping pipe, only to vanish when you turn your head. Cold spots form and dissipate rapidly, chilling pockets of air that feel profoundly unnatural. You feel the distinct, unnatural coldness clinging to you, seeping into your bones. It's not just temperature, it feels hostile. Sensory details are heightened to an unbearable degree. The phantom feeling of cobwebs brushing against your face when there are none. The metallic scent from upstairs, now coey enough to make you gag. A low, resonant hum vibrates beneath the chorus of whispers, deeper than sound, felt in your chest. Acute fear sets in, bordering on panic. You feel trapped in the cellar, isolated from the world above. You turn and try to rush for the stairs, but the sounds follow, pressing in, louder, mocking. The house itself feels like it's twisting. The stairs seem steeper, the distance to the door wrong. Rational explanations crumble under the weight of the undeniable presence, leaving only raw terror. You reach for the railing, and your hand passes through a patch of air that feels like ice. A strange itching begins beneath your skin, intensely irritating, seemingly tied to the intensity of the sounds vibrating through the air. What if leaving was never an option? Section 5. The itching under your skin intensifies, a maddening crawl that makes you want to tear at your flesh. Nausea rolls through you in waves, leaving you dizzy and disoriented. The low hum beneath the whispers grows louder, a resonant thrum that makes your teeth ache. You stumble back up the stairs, desperate to escape the cellar. But the stairs seem to shift beneath your feet, the risers uneven, the descent taking longer than the ascent should have. The whispers surge around you on the landing, no longer confined to the drains, but filling the entire space, swirling like dust motes caught in a terrible current. You catch sight of yourself in the small, dusty mirror on the landing wall. Your reflection is pale, eyes wide with terror. But for a split second, another face overlays yours, indistinct, ancient, mouth open in a silent scream. You stagger back, heart hammering against your ribs. The house is actively changing. The angles of the walls softening, the hallway stretching into an impossible length. Doors you know should be there are gone, replaced by featureless wall, while new, dark openings appear where none should be. The metallic smell is overwhelming now, thick and coppery. You feel not just watched, but absorbed into the fabric of the house. The recurring sense of being followed sharpens. You can almost feel a cold breath on the back of your neck. Is the house just settling, or is it breathing you in? Section 6. The intensity recedes, not vanishing entirely, but pulling back like a tide. The whispers diminish to a low, distant hum, the buzzing in your ears softening to a persistent echo. The oppressive weight in the air lessens, replaced by a profound, unnerving stillness. The itching beneath your skin subsides, leaving a raw, phantom sensation, like something was peeled away. The nausea fades, but a dull ache remains behind your eyes. The house seems to settle back into itself, the impossible angles smoothing out, the phantom doors gone. Replaced by familiar walls, you find yourself standing in the hallway, the single shaft of light from the high window just where it was at the start, as if no time has passed at all. But the air feels different, thinner somehow, yet charged with a residual tension. The coldness has left your bones, but a deep internal chill remains, a permanent residue of the dread that had gripped you. The mirror in the living room remains draped, the sliver of glass no longer visible, but you feel its gaze nonetheless, a silent witness. The questions linger in the quiet. What was in the sound? What were the shapes glimpsed in the dark? What did the house become, and for how long? The metallic smell is almost gone, but you can still taste copper at the back of your throat. The recurring motif of the mirrors now feels like a broken promise, a reflection that cannot be trusted, showing not what is, but what is watching. The sounds are quieter now, almost imperceptible, but you know they haven't left. They are simply waiting again, nested in the silence, listening. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. The air thickens, not just with damp, but with a crushing weight, a palpable presence that presses in from all sides. It feels like descending fathoms deep, pressure building behind your eyes, in your chest. The whispers are no longer discrete sounds. They are a single, roaring torrent, filling every cavity of your skull. They vibrate in your bones, a resonance that feels like your very structure is coming undone. You taste decay on your tongue, metallic and foul, the flavor of rust and rot, even though your mouth is empty. The smell is worse, Stagnant water, thick with algal bloom and something ancient, fills your lungs with every breath, heavy and suffocating. You are drowning on land, the world blurred by the sensation of being submerged. The focus narrows to the old porcelain sink, the source hinted at in the fragmented notes, the place where the echoes seemed strongest. The water in the basin doesn't just sit. It swirls sluggishly, not draining, but turning inward upon itself. Above the dark surface, the air shimmers, twisting like the extreme heat haze, yet the cold emanating from it is profound, cunning. It suggests a form just beyond perception, a rippling distortion that implies immense mass without occupying space. And then the breath, a slow, chilling exhalation from the drain itself, carrying the sickening scent you already taste and breathe. A non-human sigh that is somehow louder than the deafening whispers. Your mind struggles to hold shape. Thoughts fragment, names scatter like startled birds. Who are you? The question has no anchor. The barrage of sound and sensation chips away at the edges of self, eroding identity like water on stone. You raise a hand. Or is it your hand? It looks familiar, but the connection feels severed, distant. A scream tears through your throat, a raw animal sound, but it feels foreign, as if it's emanating from someone else trapped inside the same drowning body. There is no communication left in the sound, only terror given voice. The psychological fracture is complete. You are dissolving, becoming part of the sound, part of the water, part of the waiting presence. You are porous, open, indistinguishable from the horror that surrounds you. Then it cuts out. The sound vanishes. The whispers cease. The suffocating pressure eases, infinitesimally. This silence is not peace. It is the most profound horror yet. It means the torrent has stopped, not because it is gone, but because it is no longer necessary. It has accomplished its purpose. It has noticed you, fully. The absence is worse than the noise, heavier than the pressure, a terrifying stillness that suggests absolute, focused attention. It implies that the form hinted at in the air has solidified, that the breath from the drain is drawn in, waiting. The recurring motif of sound and water finds its twisted peak not in overwhelming presence, but in its sudden, deliberate lack. It's as if the entity has finally stopped knocking and has simply walked through the door. And in the quiet, you remember the final, frantic lines in the research journal, scrawled unevenly on brittle paper. The sound stops. It sees me. There is no me left. The words echo, not as a warning from the past, but as a description of your immediate present, a shared conclusion to an inescapable journey. You are the echo now. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. This is not a story you find. It is a story that finds you, tucked into the damp corner of an old house, whispered by the wind through broken panes, carried on currents deep beneath the surface. It settles over you like dust and damp, cold and patient, waiting for you to listen. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. Section 1. You step across the threshold, and the air changes. Not just the temperature, which drops several degrees despite the weak afternoon sun, but something else. It presses in, thick with the scent of salt and decaying wood. a silence that feels less like absence and more like holding its breath. This house, perched on a forgotten stretch of coast road, feels ancient in a way that transcends years. It feels waiting. The floorboards groan a welcome, or perhaps a warning, beneath your weight. Dust motes dance in the thin light, filtering through grimy windows, and the shadows cling to corners with a stubborn tenacity. You've come looking for something, a record, a history, an echo of lives lived here. But the house offers only this oppressive quiet. Then you hear it, a sound, soft, rhythmic, from somewhere deep within the walls. Drip, drip, drip. But it's not rain outside, and there are no visible leaks overhead. It's too steady, too deliberate for simple water damage. The sound pulls at you, a low, insistent pulse in the heart of the silence. You walk towards it, drawn through dim hallways where peeling wallpaper hangs like forgotten skin. Each step echoes unnaturally loud. A chill that isn't just cold snakes up your spine. Doubt flickers. Is the house playing tricks on you? Or is it the isolation, settling in faster than you expected? The rhythmic sound continues, a tiny hammer tapping on the inside of the world, and you find yourself leaning closer to the wall, straining to hear it better, to understand its strange, watery language. The sound is not coming from above, like a leak. It seems to rise from below, from the very foundations of the house, carried on something unseen. You feel a prickle of unease, small but sharp, like a splinter of ice beneath the skin. What kind of water makes this sound, here, so far from the sea, but so close to the secrets buried in the earth? Section 2. The dripping sound is clearer now, a constant thrumming that seems to synchronize with your own heartbeat. You've traced it to a specific wall in the lowest part of the house, near what used to be a cellar entrance, long since bricked over. The plaster here is discolored, stained a perpetual shade of damp gray, and when you touch it, the wall feels strangely cool and yielding, almost slick beneath your fingertips. It's more than just surface moisture. The dampness feels like it saturates the very stone, seeping from within. Drip, drip, drip. The rhythm has a hypnotic quality, drawing you deeper into a state of focused attention, where the outside world fades away. Your thoughts become singularly centered on the sound, on the dampness, on the mystery they represent. A new atmospheric detail asserts itself, a faint, sour scent, like stagnant water left too long in darkness, mixed with something else, something organic and vaguely unpleasant. It makes the air heavy in your lungs. You try to rationalize it. Old pipes, poor ventilation, but the scent seems to emanate from the wall itself, blooming in response to your proximity. A moment of psychological fracture occurs. You find yourself talking to the wall or to the sound, a hushed whisper, asking what it is, what it wants. The logical part of your mind screams at the absurdity of this. But the feeling of being in communion with something ancient and hidden is overwhelming. The sound of the dripping water, your chosen motif, is no longer just a curiosity. It is the voice of the house, or of whatever resides beneath it. This damp, weeping wall feels like a barrier, a thin membrane separating you from the source of the sound, and you have an unsettling feeling that it is not merely water on the other side, but something else entirely, something patient and waiting. The rhythm shifts subtly, a pause here, an extra beat there, almost like a question being asked in a language you are on the verge of understanding, if only you listen hard enough. Section 3. The dripping stops. The sudden silence is not a relief, but a shock. It is heavier than the sound it replaces, a palpable weight that presses in on your eardrums, leaving a ringing echo in its wake. For a moment, you stand there, paralyzed by the abrupt absence of the rhythmic pulse that had become the focus of your world. The sour, damp scent seems to intensify in the stillness. You run your hand over the slick gray wall, expecting to feel the vibration of the drips, but there is nothing. Just the strange yielding surface and the deep, unnatural cold. Where did it go? Did it stop, or did it move? The question triggers a deeper psychological fracture. A wave of intense fear washes over you, not the fear of a jump scare, but the primal dread of the unknown, of something vast and unseen acknowledging your presence. You feel exposed, vulnerable in the sudden quiet. Then you hear it again. Not the dripping, but something else. A faint, wet, scuttling sound, like something dragging itself across a rough surface, quickly followed by a low, almost inaudible whisper. It seems to come from the same wall, perhaps from deeper within, or even from the floor at its base, where a small, rusted grate covers what looks like an old floor drain. The sound of water, your motif, has transformed. It is now motion and breath, no longer rhythmic, but sporadic, secretive. The floor around the drain feels colder than the rest of the room, and the dampness seems to concentrate there, a small, dark pool against the stone. Is the sound the water moving, or something in the water? Or is it coming from the drain itself, bubbling up from below? You find yourself staring at the drain, a small circle of rusted metal leading into absolute darkness, and you feel a profound sense of dread, as if this humble drain is not just a plumbing fixture, but an eye looking up at you from the depths. The whisper comes again, a sigh carried on damp air, and you are certain now that you are not alone in this silence. Section 4. The whispers are becoming clearer, or perhaps you are simply learning to interpret their language. They aren't words, not exactly, but fragments of sound, sibilant and wet, like pebbles being tumbled in a dark stream. They seem to emanate directly from the drain now, rising on faint currents of air that carry the damp, foul scent. The rusted grate feels unnaturally cold beneath your fingertips when you kneel beside it. You stare into the darkness of the pipe, seeing nothing, but sensing an immense, patient presence waiting just below the surface. The dampness on the wall nearby has spread, forming patterns that look vaguely like branching veins or roots, reaching towards the drain. It feels deliberate, like a spreading stain of consciousness. Your psychological state is shifting. The fear is still there, a constant low thrumming, but it is overlaid with a strange sense of compulsion. You feel drawn to the drain, a morbid curiosity overriding all instinct for self-preservation. The outside world, the reasons you came here, they feel increasingly distant, unreal. Only the house, the dampness, the drain, and the whispers hold any meaning. The motif of water and sound is now centered entirely on the drain. It is the focal point, the mouth of whatever is speaking to you. You find yourself leaning closer, trying to decipher the liquid speech, feeling a terrifying pull, as if the darkness is exhaling, trying to draw you into its depths. The whispers seem to promise understanding, ancient knowledge, if you would only surrender to the pull, if you would only listen without reservation. You wonder, fleetingly, if the dampness is a manifestation of the whispers, or if the whispers are the sound of the dampness thinking, spreading. The line between your thoughts and the sounds from the drain begins to blur. Section 5. The sounds from the drain are no longer just whispers. They're a chorus now, a rush of sibilant voices tumbling over one another, indistinguishable yet overwhelming. The air thickens, becoming heavy and humid, carrying the cloying scent of decay and something else, something strangely sweet and intoxicating. The damp patterns on the wall seem to pulse with a faint, internal light that is not light, but a deeper shade of darkness. You are kneeling by the drain, your face close to the rusted grate, breathing in the noxious air that spills from its mouth. All other senses are muted, subsumed by the overwhelming tide of sound and smell. This is the peak of the descent, the point of no return. A profound psychological fracture occurs. The sense of self begins to dissolve. The whispers feel like they are no longer outside you, but inside, echoing in your skull, resonating in your bones. Your thoughts are no longer your own, but seem to be a part of the surging, liquid chorus from the drain. The motif of the water, the sound, the drain reaches its terrible culmination. The drain is not just a pipe. It is a throat, a passage, an opening into a vast, dark ocean beneath the earth. And the voices are its inhabitants, reaching out. There is a sudden, violent inhale from the drain, a sucking sound that is not air, but presence. And you feel a terrifying, irresistible pull. Your fingers scrabble at the cold, rusted grate, not to pull away, but to push it open, to give yourself over to the sound, the dampness, the waiting world below. The whispers become a single, deafening roar in your mind. And in that sound, you hear your own name, called not by a single voice, but by countless wet ones, welcoming you. Is this what was waiting? Is this what the water carries? The world tilts, and the darkness in the drain seems to consume everything. Section 6. The recordings stop. The notes cease. There is only silence now in the specific location that housed the terror, where the drain sits like a forgotten mouth. Or perhaps not silence, but a different kind of sound. A soft, rhythmic tapping from deep within the walls. The same sound that first drew you in, only now it is suddenly off-key, like a broken clock marking time in a world gone wrong. The fate of the one who tried to record the whispers is unclear. Were they taken by the voices in the drain? Did they simply dissolve into the dampness and the sound? All that remains are the scattered notes, damp at the edges, the final, silent tapes that captured only the rush of static before the end, and the unsettling certainty that something was discovered here, something that should have remained hidden deep within the earth, carried on the water's dark currents. The drain is quiet now, passive and dark, but you find yourself listening anyway, straining to hear something, anything, that might break the terrifying calm, to hear the familiar, terrible whispers again, if only to know the presence is still distinct from the silence. The immediate horror has passed from the surface of the house, but the impact remains. There is an absence where there was a presence, a stillness that feels wrong. The house decays slowly, the damp stains spreading like a map of a drowned world across the walls near the drain. The psychological residue clings to the air, a lingering sense of dread and displacement. And sometimes, when you are very still, alone in the unnerving quiet, you think you can feel it, just below the surface of your own skin, the faint vibration of distant, waiting voices, like trapped water seeking an outlet. The cyclical sound of off-key dripping echoes faintly, a promise or a threat that the horror is merely dormant, or worse, waiting for another listener. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet.